What's going on, friends? King of Chaos, Logan Black here, and you're checking out Dude. Have you heard this? It's the music show where a bunch of nerds who are friends also sit around and chat up a whole bunch of their favorite music that we feel has kind of fallen under the radar. With me, as always, is John Torres and Scotty Cerriti. Go ahead and say hi, fellas.
What's going on, everybody?
Hi, fellas.
And joining us this week is my buddy and yours, Kevin Cross. How you doing, man?
Good. How's everybody doing?
Oh, it's a lovely, murky, and disgusting Tuesday afternoon as we're recording this. But we're not here to talk about terrible weather. We're here to talk about music. And this week we had a bit of a theme. It didn't start out that way. We didn't plan this. But then it ended up going that way. This week, as we've had New Metal Week before, we've got Pop Punk Week. Yes, and I'm sure this is going to be one of many Pop Punk Weeks because this is the stuff that we talk about all the time. Let's hop right to it with what I feel is one of the more pop punky choices amongst the four of us. We're going to start with our guest Kevin's pick. Go ahead, man. Tell us what you chose and why it's special to you, why you chose it.
It was cool. I can hear my kid crying with the oldest kid. Going for Hangover You Don't Deserve. Like it was definitely like a great album. It stood out among all their albums. It was one of their best selling, but I think the time that it was released amongst like so many other bigger bands that it kind of just like it slipped through the cracks. It got notoriety because of 1985, but other than that, it didn't do what I feel like it should have done.
I can understand that take on it. What did you guys think about this one? I'm sure this one, especially for you, Johnny, I got to go to you first because I know this album is 100% like on your regular listening.
Yeah. So for Bowling for Soup, for me, Drunk Enough to Dance in 2002, I want to say, is where it all began. You knew, like, even from then and when, like, the first time you heard Punk Rock 101, that, like, sure, they're a pop punk band, but, like, they're destined for bigger things. They had already more of a versatility in their general, like, songwriting ability. Their ability to be serious, their ability to be sad, their ability to be happy, just to immediately have that emotional range so early in your pop punk tenure, like, they were destined for bigger things. And then they came full circle with Hangover You Don't Deserve. Easily both the most radio friendly with Almost 1985. Those like second tier hits like Get Happy and Come Back to Texas. Like, I can gush about Bowling for Soup all day. They're one of my favorite live bands in terms of whether you see them at Warped Tour or a festival show. You get the fun double speed set where they ramp through as many of their hits as possible and they'll do fun covers and stuff like that. But then if you see them at like a typical like theater show or stage show, then they give you like the full strength of their production and they have a little more fun and they'll stop in the middle of songs for Edge and Christian 5-second poses. And like Bowling for Soup to me like transcends the whole genre. Like they're pop punk, but there's something else entirely. Like there's some arena rock in there, but then they've got like a little bit of a parody side. Like they can do the Weird Al flex when they want to. Their cover game is top tier. Bowling for Soup. It was a pleasure walking down memory lane again with this one because I Trucker Hat I probably listen to like once a week by itself.
Yeah, it's funny. Again, we're gonna peel the screen back and let everybody see the behind the scenes stuff here. When Kevin picked this album, he was like, Logan's gonna hate me for this one. But I figured why not give it a chance. Bowling for Soup certainly isn't a band that I listen to. Like, I won't say at all. I know the hits. On the drives, when we do pop punk sing-alongs, Chris Benet will put on, Punk Rock 101. We'll sing 1985 and Girl All the Bad Guys. Well, the hits that everyone knows. But actually doing the dive onto this album was definitely a new experience for me with a band that I legitimately never paid any attention to. Scotty, what did you think about this one?
First, I just want to say that it must have been really daunting starting here because this album is a monster. 19 tracks, I believe it is, at final tally. This was actually when I was taking my 5 a.m. bus rides to high school, this was very frequent. You know, I'm putting in my headphones, nobody come near me listening. This is, if not this album, it would probably be the next one that I love the most out of their entire catalog. But Trucker Hat, Get Happy, Come Back to Texas, Sad Sad Situation, and that's not even mentioning the hits, but they released 19 songs where they could have released 19 different radio singles, and they all would have worked on radio play on any station. Because 1985, I remember being played on like PLJ and shit everywhere. Yeah. I really love this record. I loved it when it first came out. I still love it now, and that's kind of comforting to know.
You know, I'll say this. Everyone's talking about, you know, everything being a hit. When I'm listening to this, and, you know, Kev, you mentioned it where you were like, oh, this came out at a time with a lot of other similar bands, which is why it got kind of lost in the shuffle. And I get it. You know, Blink-182 at this point was, you know, who are the pop punk band, are releasing, you know, what is like their more mature albums. And Sum 41 is doing their thing. And Simple Plan is trucking along. And Good Charlotte is on, like, the E! Network and on the cover of Us Weekly. You know, and then you got these guys who are writing these songs that I wrote down here. They sound, a lot of the songs, especially the popular ones, sound more Jonas Brothers than Blink-182, which isn't an insult. Like, nothing I'm saying, I wrote down a lot of things that might be come as an insult, but it's not. Whereas, like, they really know how to construct a pop song where any of these songs could be played on your, you know, average rock station, but then they could also be played, you know, in between a, you know, well, it's 2004 here, Christina Aguilera or, I don't know, whoever else was popular at the time. But, yeah, I wrote down pop punk by numbers, but that's not an insult. It's very much, especially that first song, Almost, where it's that, if I had any memory of all of my guitar teaching, I would know what this is. But it's that same, like, the progression from Damn It, which Blink-182 use at least twice per album. That same like progression where you're like, you know, here, then you're here, then you're here, then you're here. I don't know. I'm going with tabs because I haven't played guitar in years. But that's my point, is that they employed that on that first song, but it was catchy as fuck. Everybody keeps talking about Get Happy and Shut Up and Smile, I think was another one that stood out to me. And then, where was it? I'm looking through here. Texas. Yeah, Ohio, come back to Texas. Oh my God, what a fucking monster of a song. Like, again, as somebody who never paid attention to this band and, like, made it my business not to pay attention to them, I sat there and I was like, God damn, they could write a fucking pop song. And really well. And then I'll agree with you, Johnny, in that, like, their live shows, when we did Warped Tour for Blitzkrieg Pro, they were playing there, and my, you know, then fiance, now wife, was all, oh, I have to see this. I'm gonna decline that call that's coming through at this time. Yeah, no, they're an incredible live band. And again, credit where credit is due. Gotta give it there. But we gave these albums ratings, so I'd like to be able to go into that. So let's start with you, Kev. What did you rate this album?
This album is definitely one of my all-time favorites. So I'm slapping it with 8.5 out of 10 pop punk singers that have been slapped with charges.
That's a lot of them. You could have won 10,000 out of 10 because there's a lot of pop punk singers that are catching a case. Scotty, what did you rate this one?
I gave this one 8.5 out of 10 middle-aged moms at Warped Tour waiting to hear 1985.
Ooh, that's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Johnny?
Oh, man. 9 out of 10 near blackout drunk crowd sing-alongs to Come Back to Texas.
I gave this one 7 out of 10 bands that really understand what it's like to be a 15-year-old boy from the burbs. Really.
For sure.
Oh, yeah. Listen, Blink got it. Sum 41 was kind of there. I think these guys, without a doubt, are really, like, you get the angst, you get the, you know, the love, the stupid partying, and, you know, the sophomoric humor. It's literally all there on this record. Before we move on, any other questions, comments, concerns, or feelings about Bowling for Soups, a hangover you don't deserve? All right, let's move it along to Scotty's pick. Go ahead, lay it on us, dude.
So my pick this week was Decomposer, the second album by The Matches. The Matches were a pop punk band that later kind of evolved into their own weird thing as the albums went on. This is, I think, their best record, mainly because it has the art in it and it also has the pop punk still in it from the very first record that they released. This record is insane. I'm sure I confused some of you when the first song on the album was vocals and violins, but the purpose, everything had a purpose on the album. One of the first things I noticed the first time I heard it was in Paper Cut Skin and Little Maggots. They do this big build right before they get to the first chorus, and then it just kind of evens out and stays kind of at the same level that the first verse was on, and I always thought that was really cool. What Katie said is one of my favorite pop punk songs ever, and Shoot Me in the Smile crushed me the first time I heard it. This is, I think, like, if you're trying to get somebody into pop punk who's more of an alternative rock fan, this is definitely one of those records that you can show them.
Yeah, man, this was this is ... interesting. This was not quite what I expected, but it definitely falls into that into the pop punk genre, especially considering that I've heard earlier stuff from this band to see like where the sound evolved from. Johnny, what did you think of this one?
So this is another bullet point from the Perry Von Vicious list of bands that he's been telling me to listen to for a long time. So finally, glad to finally take a dive in. When we initially said Pop Punk Week, it's funny how all of these 4 picks evolved, where they're like pop punk, but there's something different about it from typical pop punk records. Like all 4 of these records had that in common. And as Scotty had said, from right off the bat with Salty Eyes, it gives you this like pop punk band that's like venturing out of the genre. And as I moved down on this, and then like picked maybe like 2 tracks from older records just to get a basis of comparison, I got little bits of flashbacks to like the Seosin to Circa Survive transition, where it was straight-laced pop punk. But then they had to start trying, Anthony Green had to start trying new things, and some bands will completely disassemble one band to start a new one. Others will stay within the same act and just continue to evolve on the original sound. And it sounds like that's what they pretty much were doing here. Throughout this, I got notes of At the Drive-In at times. I got notes of Fall of Troy at times. And as Jake had said, this is a really good like transitional album for pop punk fans who aren't sure if they really like indie rock to, give this a try because it has elements of both. And then vice versa for the indie rock crowd coming into pop punk. This is probably a really good transitional record for both. But yeah, this was a trip and definitely a catalog worth investigating.
I was gonna say this jumps out to me like what would be like their version of the Black Parade, being that like MCR was like this, we're an emo band with some punk roots, but then they were like, no, we're gonna write this really like this record that just kind of challenges us to be different and try to be different, and just we don't care about falling into that genre anymore. And this to me kind of felt like that from this band. Kevin, what did you think of this one?
This is the band itself, like they took me by surprise. Like all these other picks from you guys they're records I've never heard. So I go into them like completely fresh. And like he said, the first track, it caught you off guard. But the more I'm listening, I'm like, this is really good. And it gave me his voice and the way he sang and his inflections gave me, oddly enough, MSI vibes.
All right.
And I'm just like, hold on, did Jimmy start a pop punk band? No. Okay, this is just some kid. But I mean, it was upbeat, it was unique, it was awesome. And like, Shoot Me in the Smile was damn. Like, I loved it. it's definitely going to be on like regular rotation of my playlists.
You know, it's interesting how like whenever all of us listen to all these picks and like everyone has something else that stands out to them, the song that stood out to me the most was Dee Dee, because it just was everything else on the record, like it was here or there, but Dee Dee was like, no, this is like if Rick Springfield or you know one of those like 80s like pop rock guys wrote a tune for this band. That really stood out to me. And I think the thing I liked most about this record, because again, this is a sound that I normally wouldn't jump into and like listen to on my own, is that I could appreciate the fact that this immediately feels like a band that did not give a fuck about making anything catchy or a single. They're just going to make music because they love making music and they're going to make it on their own terms. You could immediately feel that from everything they were doing on this record. And I could really, you know, appreciate that, you know, as a grown-up, aging punk with, you know, a more open palette. So yeah, this was a lot of fun to listen to. Ratings. Scotty, lay it on us, man. What did you rate this Matches album?
I give this one 9 out of 10 half shaved heads, half emo swoop haircuts.
Johnny, what about you?
8 out of 10 PacSun hemp necklaces.
Oof, we gotta love those hemp necklaces, man. Kevin.
I'm gonna give it 8 out of 10 empty 40s in the back of a Ford Pinto.
Ooh. I gave this one 7 out of 10 bands that 100% listen to the entire Queen catalog.
For sure.
I mean, there was definitely a lot of influence from a lot of different things, but you could really feel like they were like, let's just flex all of our influences here and have some fun.
I will say one more quick point that I'm going to make is if it's still active, I'm going to take a look. If not, I'm going to find a way to upload it and send it to everybody. But they had a website called the Matches Vault, which was their time as a band called The Locals when they were a ska punk band. And then when they released their first record as the Matches, they were a pop punk band. This was the second album. And the third album, Abandoned Hope, is like Oingo Boingo does indie. It's the weirdest fucking thing you'll ever listen to. But the songwriter Sean Harris has gone on to do other things. He did a 52-week, 52 pop song YouTube video series where they would cover the number one song on the Billboard charts every week. And if it was the same song 2 weeks in a row, they'd kind of go down the list. And his new band, Fortress Social Club, is this weird, trippy Beatles tribute type thing. And it's fucking outstanding.
I feel like at one point, like, and Henry Rollins makes this point all the time, where like you could only be a punk band for so long, like you could always hold on to the ideals and the ethics and all that stuff, but after a while you learn to play your instruments, and it's just like I don't want to play the same 4 chords anymore. So you have to kind of like go out there and like explore your influences. I get it, and I respect the hell out of it. If 15-year-old me would have called these guys posers and all that shit, but nah, you got to respect that shit. Before we move on, any other questions, comments, concerns, or feelings about Decomposer? All right, let's move on to Johnny's pick, which threw me for a fucking loop. Go right ahead, dude.
Special shout out to Alt Press for this one. This was number 1 on one of their lists, and I want to say April or May for albums that flew under the radar the previous year. 2019's Somewhere City by Origami Angel, which has turned into front to back in like my top 5 records, any genre, anything. It's the most complete bite-sized record I've ever seen in my entire life. Clocks out at 30 minutes on the dot with 10 songs. Takes a page out of the Wonder Years book where they grab every chorus from the original track, put them all together in a round on the last track, and turn it into something entirely monstrous. Couple this with the fact that you get accomplished such a layered sound as a friggin' 2-piece emo band. I'm
sorry, I've never interrupted anyone ever before. This is a 2-piece?
That is a 2-piece, yes, sir.
Well, I'm sorry. Continue, bro. Continue.
To get that layered of a sound off a 2-piece emo band is unheard of. The closest we've ever gotten to that is arguably the Front Bottoms, and even they fluctuate in and out there. But this, to me, front to back, was just like the hardest flex of what a 2-piece is really capable of. You can go track by track, and every track has its merit to it. Welcome To is one of my favorite intros I've really ever heard since Fireworks at Dawn by Census Fail. 24-hour drive-through and 666 Flags and Dr. Hoomst is this 3 in a row, just 3 songs you'll never hear any other way ever again. The riff on Dr. Hoomst is terrifying considering he just lays that out repeatedly throughout the entire song. They start to chill out a little bit with like Escape Rope and Skeleton Key, and those are just like super chill in their own right, but they still maintain the general sound and theme of the album. And there's this insane overarching positivity that for the longest time has no business in emo lyrics at all. This is the happiest emo band, the most positive emo band. Like, this is a band within the genre that you can listen to and then like go outside and do stuff and feel good. And that's not something you can say about 95% of the genre. In every way, shape, or form, this record is special. And that's where I'm cutting it off for me.
Man, I'm still trying to wrap my head around Two Piece. Like, that's wild stuff. And you mentioned, I love the fact that you were like, oh, I found out about this band from alternative press saying, to take a listen. Where this, now that I'm hearing that, I'm like, yeah, this is 100% a band that, like, music writers and editors are going to, like, gush over that nobody here. It sounds exactly like that. Like, literally nobody but, like, the editorial staff of alt press has heard of this band. And that makes perfect sense to me. Kevin, what did you think of this one?
Man, like, I'm almost as obsessed with the album as he is. Definitely, I think it was the most solid album between the picks with all of us. Like, it had like the full-on pop punk essence, but it had like old school and new school vibes. Like, it was just so well-rounded. I think that's the one that I listened to the most when we were reviewing the records, and it was damn good. Like, I'm just at a loss for words for how good this album was.
Yeah, like I said, this was one of those things where we're just like, whoa, they're trying something kind of out there, but you respect it from the get because it still is really, really listenable. It's not, just noise and things being thrown at a wall. Scotty, what about you, man?
I'm very glad that they are referred to as an emo band, because the first note I have is this is probably what Captain Jazz would sound like if they never broke up and American football never happened. This record fucking blew me away. I went in not expecting much because I'm very weird with pop punk. It has to be a certain thing, and if I'm getting into a new pop punk album, I have to have at least a little research. Went in completely blind. 666 Flags, Dr. Hoomst, immediately those 2 tracks, one after the other, fucking hit me like a train. And like you said, Skeleton Key, I'm a big fan of those little like ambient moments that you can have on an album, but that still fucking hit you right where they're supposed to. This entire album is probably going to get thrown in my everyday driving playlist, and Dr. Hoomst is probably one of my new favorite emo songs, for sure, hands down.
This was I had a lot of notes for this one. I wrote, the first thing I wrote, that this is a pop alt band that was never told they were a pop alt band. Like, you get those notes, but it's like, nope, we're going all the way out there. The thing for me and why I think I really enjoyed this record as much as I did is just when I'm listening to something and then just something comes completely out of left field, it's just like that, that jab that comes out of nowhere, that Bruce Lee just boom, it's out of nowhere. The blast beats on 666 Flags. I'm like, what are they doing?
Yep.
This is, you can't do blast beats, emo. You can't be doing blast beats. And they're like, nope, we can do that shit. We're going to do that shit. I think the 2 songs that you picked for the playlist were my favorites to go through. This was a really fun listen. And, I mean, I'm still, again, trying to wrap my head around the fact that this is a 2-piece. That is just wild to me. Completely wild stuff. Especially again because there's so many different sounds on this album. It does not sound like, it sounds like they've got a whole room full of people who are, just high on lots of shit, just going ape shit on their instruments. But you got 2 motherfuckers in there Got to give all that credit in the world. What did we rate this one? I'm going to start with you, Johnny.
For me, man, 10 out of 10 people with hair over their eyes that aren't actually sad.
Kevin.
I gave it a 9.5 out of 10 emo kids at Hot Topic scoffing at the ICP shirts.
There are so many of those ICP shirts, man. So many of them. Scotty.
I've got this as 9.5 out of 10 reprints of the first American football EP.
And I gave this one 8.5 out of 10 jazz musicians that said, fuck it, let's play some pop punk. Before we move on, any other questions, comments, concerns, or feelings about Origami Angel? All right, moving on. We're going to go with my pick. This is a band that I feel is super under the radar. They put out quite a bit of music if you look through their, all their stuff that they've done. The band is Mixtapes and the album is Maps. I actually found out about this band through Masked Intruder. Because if you guys listen to Masked Intruder, anyone in there, if you don't, fucking please do. They're incredible. But the song Heart-Shaped Guitar, which is a duet between the singer of Masked Intruder and Mora from Mixtapes, who I believe also plays in the band or played on their last tour with them. I could be totally wrong. The person was wearing a mask, but it would make sense that it would be her. And I heard rumors. But anyway, I digress. So I found this album after that and just really loved... I've said this has been like the running thing for me the whole time. I love when you have like the dual vocals of, male and female vocalists. And I think these guys do it well. And I can't really think of too many other pop punk or emo bands that do that. But we've got it with this band. Really, really love this album the first time that I heard it. And then every time I listen to it, there's like another song or another part of a song that jumps out to me, again, depending on my mood, which is why I think that this is a super versatile record. And this band got a bit more notice when they were actually playing and touring and putting out music, because it seems to me like these guys hustled hard, and it just, I guess, kind of got lost in the shuffle of a lot of other bands that might have been more marketable. But I would love to hear what you guys thought about this album. I'm going to start with you, Kevin.
This one, like when I first started listening to it, I think it was 1 or 2 tracks in. I honestly can't remember, but I'm hearing it. I'm like, is this like the pair that was doing the music for the movie Juno? It's like it had like that heavy indie vibe, and I'm just like, I really just want to like kick back, dim the lights, and just listen to this and chill all night. Like it was so most of it was just so relaxing and calming, but then like they hit you with some upbeat stuff, and then they bring you back down to relax a bit, and like it was so solid. Like the what was the track? Pop Rocks and Coke, easily my favorite track on the record, and then Orange Yellow, I think it was another one. God, like that's so good. Like I love the indie vibes that they give off, but while keeping you upbeat at the same time.
There will be either a Moldy Peaches or Kimya Dawson, which is the band from Juno, a pick from me at some point, because I absolutely love.
I also have I have the Uncluded ready to go at any moment.
Awesome. I mean, yeah. I'll be real with you. That Juno record, I still feel is super underrated as well. That might be a good pick for when we do soundtrack week. But I digress on that. Pop Rocks and Coke. What a song! And then again, you bring up starting off that record from Recently to Morning Sex and AM Radio is just, it very much is like a relaxing, like slow burn into them, giving you a little bit more speed and energy with Pop Rocks and Coke and then sprinkles. Scotty, what did you think about this one?
So before this week, there had only been 2 quote-unquote emo albums that have completely stopped me in my track. being Jawbreaker's first album, Unfun, and American Football's LP1. I got two more. I listened to this the first time without taking any notes, and I just kind of took it in. And I remembered how I felt discovering bands like Jets to Brazil and stuff like that. Morning Sex, as you had mentioned, really, really stood out to me. Just driving my fiance home from work and figuring out, what I'm doing for the day. Listening to Morning Sex, I was just like, I don't need to worry about a goddamn thing. Pop Rocks and Coke was great. Nothing Can Kill the Grimace was my personal favorite on the entire record, and it's kind of got a lot to do with the title. And Hope Springs Eternal was the other one that I was just like, holy shit, okay. This record's great. I'm diving into this band's catalog as soon as I can.
Yeah, they've got a pretty decent... I think this is the most complete album they've got, but there's a lot of good songs on their other stuff. In my personal opinion, of course. Johnny, lay it on us, man. What did you think of Mixtapes?
It was cool going back into this one. Was kind of going back into memory lane. I discovered them on I want to say Bandcamp or something when Ordinary Silence came out. So Bad Parts has been on regular play for a good 5-6 years at this point. So it was cool taking a dip back and realizing that they didn't set that high bar in 2013. They set it 3 years earlier in 2010. Because this, as already said, the first 3 tracks are just banger, banger, banger. Sunrise immediately went on the regular playlist. Same with Nothing Can Kill the Grimace. And then the wrap up with Orange, Yellow, Moonglow, and Sunsets was just part of why I say they set a high bar is just their versatility. There's a lot of things they don't get credit for. The chemistry between the two singers is one of those things that you get the one-off male-female duet track on a Newfound Glory record here or a Bayside record there or something like that. But every now and then you'll get a feature, Hayley Williams will show up or something on a 4 Year Strong or Set Your Goals record. But for someone to have this front to back such a complete sound like that, it makes you wonder there's a hole in the genre that nothing is really filling, because Mixtapes really isn't putting stuff out as much. I guess they show up at live shows every now and then as a surprise guest, but they're not, to my understanding, doing a whole lot, and it's a shame because those early 2010s they were knocking on that glass ceiling, and I'm surprised they didn't break through.
Yeah, I think it's just we're not. I think at that point you were getting a lot of these pop punk and emo bands that were a lot more high energy, a band like 4 Year Strong or all that, but it was very anthemic and as much as they were getting that pop punk crowd, you were still able to sing along and pump your fist at their tunes. Whereas this stands out to me more like a Sunny Day Real Estate, where yeah, they write great songs, but there's none of them that you're gonna sit back and go oh yeah, that's the hook or that's the chance along, or when this song plays, everybody's gonna go nuts. You just sit there with your hands in your pocket and you go, yeah, this is okay. I like this. Anyway, no, I was gonna say, so you make a great point about the chemistry of the singers. I was gonna say the only time that I've ever really felt like there was that chemistry in this type of music, similarly to this, would be when Newfound Glory did their second From Your Screen to Your Stereo, and that song they did with Lisa Loeb. They did Lisa Loeb's I Miss You. The only time I've ever felt the synergy of singers kind of meld together well enough where it's oh, this really feels not, different sounds. This is one big sound band coming together and making music. So, I mean, that's a high bar to set as well. Lisa Loeb has my heart forever, as does Newfound Glory. She's brilliant. I'm sure there'll be a record of hers on here. With that said, let's get to ratings. I'm going to start with you, Scotty.
It's funny you mentioned Sunny Day Real Estate, because my rating for this record is 9.5 out of 10 kids in LP2 sweatshirts.
Kevin.
Mine is an 8 out of 10. Burnt sienna, filtered pictures posted to MySpace with song lyrics as captions. Wow.
Listen, I've gone really long-winded with those too, but that's a great one. Johnny.
8 out of 10 Name Your Price Bandcamp compilations.
Oh man, remember those? Holy moly! Bandcamp is still is pretty dope. I got to give credit. I gave this one 8 out of 10. Kids who swear it's not a phase, Dad.
Not.
Thanks for calling me out.
Wonderful.
Wow.
Well,
Wonderful.
Listen, it can't be a phase.
Oh,
With that, we have finished up everything for today. I'm going to go around. If you've got anything to hype, go right ahead and hype it. I'm going to start with my guest, Kev. If there's anything you'd like to hype or where people could find you on social media, go right ahead.
Oh man, I've actually got a couple places where to find me on social media. First of all, like my Instagram page is where I post all of my paintings and artwork. It's straight to canvas, all one word. And then also for all you hip cool kids that like to dance all the time and hit the whoa, I'm on TikTok as Dadpool Official. Pretty much Deadpool, but as a dad. That's where you're pretty much going to find like a little bit of comedic stuff, but also a lot of political takes. Yeah, that's really all I've got promotion wise.
Awesome. Johnny.
Hey, find me on Twitter and Instagram at TheConceptJT.
Scotty.
You can find me on Twitter at SCCeriti, and I'm going to do something I don't usually do and plug a couple shows real quick.
Yeah.
Coming up at the end of the month, both streaming on IWTV, are a couple of really important events. On October 25th, Matt Tremont's retirement party, which will feature Matt and a mystery wrestler wrestling Team Tremendous, which I'm very excited about. And then October 30th and 31st is the last extravaganza, which will be a 2-day tournament to crown the first ever H2O Danny Havoc Hardcore Champion. All of these will be streaming on IWTV Live as they happen. You can use the code HUSTLE for a free trial and check out everything that they have to offer. I mean, it's great to binge watch wrestling sometimes.
Oh, fucking yeah. And those are definitely two events that I will sign off on as well, considering what Matt and Danny, in his legacy, both of them with their legacies in pro wrestling. As for me, you can find me on all social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at King of Chaos NYC. You can check out the Year One Wrestling Podcast. You're watching this on the Year One Podcast YouTube account. So go ahead and follow that on all social media at Year, the number 1 pod, and then literally any place you can get a podcast. Any actual place. You're going to find it. It's going to be there. Go ahead, click subscribe, take a listen to it. There's a lot of really fun stuff going on there. And if you'd like to support me in any other way with your dollar, go right ahead to my Pro Wrestling Tees store, ProWrestlingTees/King of Chaos NYC, or directly at my personal store. That would be BigCartel.com. Oh, sorry. I'll get it right at some point. King of Chaos NYC.BigCartel.com. For myself, for Johnny and Scotty, and for our guest this week, we'll see you guys next time on Dude, Have You Heard This?